So it was around 11:30 p.m., June 24th, when Florence County deputies got the call. A shooting on a rural road near Johnsonville, South Carolina. When officers arrived, they found 16-year-old Trey Wright lying in the middle of the road, shot multiple times, twice in the chest, and barely clinging to life. Trey was a rising sophomore at Johnsonville High. He played varsity football, varsity baseball. He rode dirt bikes. He was just 16 years old. He was rushed to the hospital, but sadly did not survive. And Trey's death might have been written off as another small-town mystery, but then there was video and photos that surfaced. And police say they now know Trey was lured to his death in a calculated plot allegedly set up by his own girlfriend. They say she brought another boy, her other romantic interest, to that country road where a group of teens then actually filmed the showdown. That's how they had the video of this whole thing. You see the photos there. 19-year-old Devin Raper, who had already allegedly flashed a gun at Trey before, argued with him over the girl until it ended in gunfire.
Imagine dying in the street, gasping for air, blood everywhere. And instead of someone helping you, instead of calling 911, somebody pulls out their phone and films you. That's how Trey Wright spent his last moments. 16 years old, betrayed by his own girlfriend, shot by another teen, and recorded like he was content for somebody's feed. This ain't a movie. This is Johnsonville, South Carolina, June 2025. And by the time the smoke cleared, 10 teenagers were arrested. Period. Trey Wright was that friend everybody wanted around. Funny, loyal, the type to have your back no matter what. His classmates said he could walk into a room and change the whole mood, make you laugh when you were down, make you feel seen when you felt invisible. To his family, Trey was energy, pure energy, a rising sophomore at Johnsonville High School, varsity football player, baseball too. He loved dirt bikes, loved hunting, loved fishing. 16 years old and still figuring out who he was supposed to be in this world. Then Gianna Kisten Mocker walked into his life. 17 years old. Cheerleader. Always in the spotlight, always the center of attention. From the outside, they looked like every other high school couple. Cute pictures together. Late-night texts. That first love energy that makes everything feel bigger than it is. But girl, if you looked closer, if you really paid attention, there were signs. Friends noticed Trey was always trying to keep Gianna happy, always trying to prove himself, always making sure she was good, even when it cost him something. That's not love, that's control. But Trey didn't see it. Or maybe he saw it and thought that's just what love looked like. When you're 16 and it's your first real relationship, how are you supposed to know the difference between someone who loves you and someone who's using you? Prosecutors would later say Gianna had emotional power over Trey. The kind of power that makes you do things you wouldn't normally do. The kind of power that makes you show up when you should stay home. Now enter Devin Raper, 18 years old, and according to investigators, another romantic interest of Gianna's. Like, how you playing two boys at the same time in a small town and think that's gonna end well? Make it make sense. But that's exactly what authorities say Gianna was doing. Talking to Trey, talking to Devin, telling each of them different stories, playing them against each other. And Devin had already flashed a gun at Trey before. Let that sink in. This wasn't the first time there was tension between them. Witnesses said Devin had threatened Trey over Gianna, showed him the weapon, made it clear what could happen. So Trey knew. He knew Devin was dangerous. He knew there was bad blood between them. But when Gianna called, Trey still answered. June 24th, 2025. Messages were flying back and forth all day. Gianna was coordinating. That's what prosecutors say. She was talking to Trey, talking to Devin, setting up a meeting, making plans. But here's the thing, Trey. I thought he was just going to hang out. He thought it was a normal night with friends. He had no idea he was walking into a trap. Investigators pieced together those text messages later. They saw the web Gianna was weaving, the way she positioned both boys, the way she made sure they'd both be in the same place at the same time. And girl, she didn't just set it up. She drove Devin to the location. Knowing he had a gun, knowing there was going to be a confrontation, knowing what could happen when you put two teenage boys, one weapon, and a whole lot of jealousy in the same space. 11:30 at night, North First Neck Road. A dark, rural stretch in the Johnsonville community of Florence County. Not the kind of place you go unless you live there or you're meeting someone. Trey showed up. So did Devin. And so did a whole group of other teenagers. 10 of them total would eventually be tied to what happened that night. The air was thick. You could feel the tension before anything even jumped off. Voices started getting loud. Trey and Devin were face to face, arguing over Gianna. Other teens were standing around watching. Some of them knew what was about to happen. Some of them helped make it happen. And some of them just stood there, frozen, like this was entertainment. Then the first shot rang out. Trey got hit in the chest. At close range, the bullet tore through him and he dropped. But it didn't stop there. Devin fired again. Multiple shots. Trey collapsed in the middle of that dark road, bleeding, struggling to breathe. And the teens around him, they scattered, screaming, running, panicking. But one of them pulled out their phone and hit record. While Trey was dying, somebody was filming. Let me tell you something. That video became key evidence in this case. But it also became a symbol of something much darker. What does it say about a generation that their first instinct during tragedy is to pull out a phone, not to help, not to call for help, but to record? Like Trey's death was content, like his last moments were something to watch later, maybe even post somewhere. Jasmine Louderback lived nearby. She heard the commotion and rushed outside. By the time she got there, Trey was already down. A police officer had just arrived. Jasmine's father was trying to help, pressing a towel against Trey's wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. Jasmine knelt down next to Trey and whispered to him that everything was going to be okay. That help was coming, that he just needed to hold on. But deep down, she knew. The deputy's report described the scene in detail. Trey lying in the road, multiple gunshot wounds to the chest, a towel soaked in blood, witnesses standing around, some crying, some in shock, all of them trying to process what they'd just seen. Emergency medical services arrived and rushed Trey to the hospital. They did everything they could. It wasn't enough. Trey Wright was pronounced dead, 16 years old, a rising sophomore who loved football, loved his friends, loved his little brother. Gone. And the most twisted part of all this? It wasn't random. It wasn't a stranger in the dark. It wasn't even a fight that got out of hand. Prosecutors say this was orchestrated, planned, set up by the one person Trey trusted more than anyone else in the world, his girlfriend. Witnesses told police they saw the shooter leave in a white Mazda. A female was driving. 3 male passengers were inside. That white Mazda became a key piece of the puzzle, because investigators say that female driver was Gianna. She brought Devin to that road. She knew he was armed. She knew what he was capable of. And when the shots were fired and Trey was dying, she drove away. When Florence County deputies got that call about a shooting on North First Neck Road, they had no idea what they were walking into. A routine shooting call in a small town. Maybe a fight gone wrong. Maybe a robbery. But when that deputy arrived and found Trey lying in the middle of the road, barely breathing, with a group of teenagers standing around screaming and crying. He knew this was different. The deputy's report painted a vivid picture. Multiple gunshot wounds, close range, a towel pressed against Trey's chest, already soaked through with blood. Witnesses everywhere, but nobody talking clearly. Some were in shock, some were crying too hard to form words, and some looked like they knew exactly what had just happened and were terrified of what came next. But here's where this case took a turn that nobody expected. There was video and photos. Multiple teenagers had their phones out during the confrontation. One of them recorded the actual shooting. The moment Devin pulled that trigger. The moment Trey fell. The chaos that followed. All of it captured on a cell phone like it was a fight at lunch or some drama to post online. That video became everything. It gave investigators a timeline. It showed who was there. It showed what happened. But more than that, it revealed something chilling about the group of teens involved. They weren't just bystanders who happened to be in the wrong place. According to what police uncovered, some of them knew this was coming. Some of them helped set it up, and some of them stood there and watched it unfold like it was a movie. Witnesses at the scene told deputies they saw the shooter leave in a white Mazda, female driver, 3 male passengers. That detail became crucial because investigators started tracing who owned that car, who was driving that night, and where they went after Trey was shot. And girl, the deeper they dug, the more names started surfacing. This wasn't just a shooter and a victim. This was a conspiracy involving almost a dozen teenagers. As detectives interviewed witnesses and reviewed that video evidence, a picture started forming. Gianna Kisten Mocker wasn't just Trey's girlfriend who happened to be there. She was the architect, the one pulling strings, the one who brought Devin to that location knowing he was armed, knowing there was bad blood, knowing a confrontation was inevitable. And when you bring an armed person to a fight, you know what might happen. Major Mike Nunn with the Florence County Sheriff's Office would later explain the legal theory behind the charges.
They were complicit in bringing the armed co-defendant raper to the incident location, knowing that there would be a confrontation, and they knew that raper had presented a firearm to the victim and had made threats to shoot him according to the arrest warrants. So the decision was made, again with investigators in consultation with the solicitor's office, to charge each of them with murder, the hand of one being the hand of all, as part of South Carolina law as well. So that's the basis of the charge for each of those individuals.
Under South Carolina law, if you help set up a murder, if you bring the shooter to the scene knowing what might happen, you're just as guilty as the person who pulled the trigger. The evidence kept stacking up. Text messages between Gianna and Devin. Messages between Gianna and Trey. Communication between other teens in the group. Investigators pieced together a timeline that showed this wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a fight that escalated too quickly. This was planned, coordinated, set in motion hours before Trey ever arrived on that dark road.
Trey, there's not just a small thing of words that I can use to describe him. He was one of a kind.
18-year-old Jasmine Louderback says the past couple of months just haven't seemed real since the death of her dear friend, 16-year-old Trey Wright. Trey was shot to death in June on North First Neck Road in the Johnsonville community of Florence County. Jasmine says the shooting happened near her family's front yard, but she didn't see it. She tells me she rushed to Trey's side just after the shooting.
When I got out there, it was a police officer who just got on the site, and it was my dad attending to Trey. And then I really just went over there to try and tell him that everything's going to be okay.
Deputies say they found the 16-year-old lying in the road after being shot multiple times. This 10-page police report says several people were standing around Trey screaming. The deputy says Trey had been shot in the chest at close range, and the officer used a towel to apply pressure to the wound until EMS got there. The report says witnesses on scene saw the shooter leave in a white Mazda, quote, driven by a female with 3 male passengers. So far, 9 teens are charged in Trey's murder, and 7 of them are out of jail on bond. Trey's mother says her son loved to hunt, fish, and have fun with his friends and his younger brother. She says Trey was so excited about playing football for Johnsonville High School this year. She wants justice in her son's death, and so does his good friend, Jasmine Louderback. She has a stern message about teens and gun violence.
I just hope that a huge lesson is learned from all of this. A lot of these kids nowadays try and play them little thug or gangster roles, and I mean, it's not worth it. My brother lost his life, but those kids also lost the rest of their lives. And I don't think this situation should have happened at all.
The next day after Trey died, police moved fast. Devin Raper was arrested first. 18 years old, facing murder charges and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. The mugshot hit the news, and people in Johnsonville couldn't believe it. These were their kids, their neighbors' kids, kids they'd seen at football games and school events. And now one was dead and another was facing life in prison. But that was just the beginning. Devin's first court appearance was a mess. See, when you have your first appearance, you're supposed to stay quiet. Let your lawyer talk. Don't say anything that can be used against you later. But Devin couldn't help himself. Standing in front of the judge, he tried to argue his case right then and there.
I did not do none of this. There was 4 more people.
All right, I'm not here to try.
I understand that.
I'm not here to try your case, but you can speak to law enforcement and you can also talk to your attorney.
Like, what does that even mean? The judge shut him down quick. That's not how court works. That's not how any of this works. 5 days after Devin's arrest, they came for Gianna, 17-year-old cheerleader. The girl who was supposed to love Trey, charged with accessory before the fact to murder. Investigators laid it out clearly in the arrest warrant. She drove Devin to the scene. She knew he was armed. She knew there would be a confrontation, and according to the warrant, she knew it was likely to lead to death. Let me tell you something. That phrase, likely to lead to death, that's not something you say about a regular argument or a fistfight. That's something you say when you know someone has a gun and you know they're angry enough to use it. Gianna's arrest sent shockwaves through the community. Because this wasn't just about a shooter anymore. This was about betrayal. About a girl who set up her own boyfriend to die. Gianna was released to home detention. No internet access. Ankle monitor. The former cheerleader who used to be on the sidelines leading chants was now stuck in her house, waiting for trial. But the arrests didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, more names started dropping. Hunter Kendall, 18 years old. Sydney Kearns, 17. Corinne Belviso, 18. All 3 charged with murder as adults under South Carolina law. Belviso and Kearns posted bond and got out, but the charges remained. Murder. Not accessory, not conspiracy, murder. How do you charge someone with murder when they didn't pull the trigger? Major Mike Nunn explained it to the media. They were complicit in bringing the armed co-defendant to the incident location, knowing that there would be a confrontation, and they knew that Raper had presented a firearm to the victim and had made threats to shoot him according to the arrest warrants. So basically, if you helped set it up, if you brought the shooter there, if you knew he had a gun and knew he'd threatened Trey before, you're guilty of murder too. That's South Carolina law, and prosecutors weren't playing games. The decision to charge these teens with murder wasn't taken lightly. This wasn't about throwing charges at kids to see what sticks. This was about holding everyone accountable for their role in Trey's death. Corinne Belviso's name stood out to some people because she was also a cheerleader on Gianna's squad. Close friends of Trey told reporters that Belviso and some of the others were just bystanders, just there when it happened. But prosecutors saw it differently. Being there wasn't passive. Knowing what was coming and not stopping it wasn't innocent. And if you helped coordinate getting everyone to that location, you're part of the crime. 2 more teens were charged, but their names weren't released because they were minors under South Carolina law. That brought the total to 9 arrested. But investigators said there was a 10th suspect expected to turn themselves in. 10 teenagers. 10 lives changed forever because of one night, one gun, and one girl who decided her boyfriend needed to die. The mugshots spread across social media. Young faces. Some looking scared, some looking defiant, some looking like they still didn't understand the weight of what they were facing. Parents in Florence County looked at those pictures and asked themselves how this happened. How does a group of teenagers coordinate a murder? How do 10 people keep a secret like that? And why didn't anyone speak up before it was too late? Sydney Kearns posted bond. So did Corinne Belviso. They walked out of jail, but their lives were far from normal. Court dates looming, murder charges hanging over their heads. The possibility of spending decades in prison for decisions they made as teenagers. Devin Raper stayed behind bars. No bond. The alleged shooter doesn't get to go home. Gianna sat in her house on home detention, cut off from the internet, cut off from her friends, waiting for her day in court. The girl who allegedly orchestrated the whole thing. The girl who authorities say played both sides and set her boyfriend up to die. She couldn't cheer anymore, couldn't post on social media, couldn't live the life she had before June 24th. None of them could. The Florence County Sheriff's Office confirmed they had video evidence from the night of the murder. They wouldn't release it publicly, but its existence was a key piece of their case. That video showed who was there, showed what happened, showed that this wasn't an accident or a fight that got out of hand. This was exactly what prosecutors said it was: a setup, a betrayal, a murder. And while those teens sat in jail or on house arrest waiting for trial, Trey Wright's family was planning his funeral, trying to make sense of how their son, their brother, their friend was gone, trying to understand how the people he trusted, the people he thought cared about him, could do this. News of Trey's murder didn't just spread through Johnsonville, it exploded. Small towns like this, everybody knows everybody. Your neighbor's kid plays football with your kid, your coworker's daughter cheers with the girl down the street. When something like this happens, it doesn't just affect one family. It shatters an entire community. Parents looked at their own teenagers and asked questions they never thought they'd have to ask. Who are your friends? What are you doing when you're out at night? Are you safe? Teachers at Johnsonville High School wept openly in the hallways. They remembered Trey's smile, his energy, the way he could lighten up a room. Students held candlelight vigils, hundreds of people gathering to mourn a boy who should still be here. At those vigils, friends told stories about Trey, how he always had your back, how he could make anyone laugh, even on their worst day. How he was excited about football season, about his sophomore year, about everything ahead of him. But underneath all that grief, underneath all those tears, there was something else. Anger, confusion, and a question that nobody wanted to say out loud, but everyone was thinking. How many people knew this was coming, and why didn't anyone stop it? 10 teenagers were involved in this case. 10. That's not a couple of kids making a bad decision in the heat of the moment. That's a group, a crew. People who communicated with each other, coordinated with each other, and showed up to that dark road together. Some helped plan it. Some drove people there. Some just watched. But all of them had a chance to walk away. All of them had a chance to tell an adult. All of them had a chance to save Trey's life. They didn't. Jasmine Louderback, the 18-year-old who rushed to Trey's side after the shooting, spoke to reporters a few weeks later. You could hear the pain in her voice, the loss, but you could also hear the frustration. She said,
Trey, there's not just a small thing of words that I can use to describe him. He was one of a kind.
She talked about how the past couple of months didn't feel real, how she kept expecting to see Trey around town, expecting him to text her, expecting things to go back to normal. But normal was gone. She stayed with him. She tried to comfort him. And girl, I can't imagine what that does to a person, watching your friend die and knowing there's nothing you can do. But Jasmine had something to say about all this. Something important. She looked directly into the camera and said,
I just hope that a huge lesson is learned from all of this. A lot of these kids nowadays try and play them little thug or gangster roles, and I mean, it's not worth it. My brother lost his life, but those kids also lost the rest of their lives. And I don't think this situation should have happened at all.
Period. She called Trey her brother. Not by blood, but by bond. And she was right about everything she said. These kids were playing roles, pretending to be something they weren't, acting tough, acting like consequences don't exist. Like real life is a music video or a video game where you can restart when things go wrong. But you can't restart. Trey doesn't get to come back. Those 10 teenagers don't get to undo what happened on North First Neck Road. Trey Wright should be getting ready for his junior year right now. He should be on that football field, suited up, playing the sport he loved. He should be joking around with his friends, hanging out with his little brother, planning his future. Instead, his mother is visiting his grave. His friends are trying to figure out how to move forward without him. And his story has become a warning. Trey's mother described him as a boy with the biggest heart, someone who cared deeply about others, someone who loved to hunt, fish, and just have fun. She said he was so excited about playing football for Johnsonville High School this year. That was supposed to be his season, his time to shine, and it was taken from him by the person he loved most. For parents everywhere, Trey's story hits different. It's not just a true crime case. It's a reminder to pay attention, to know who your kids are dating, to watch for warning signs of manipulation and control, to talk to them about healthy relationships and what real love looks like. Because Trey's family probably thought everything was fine, probably thought Gianna was a nice girl, probably had no idea what was happening behind closed doors. For teenagers, Trey's story is a different kind of warning, about who you trust, about recognizing when someone is using you, about understanding that real love doesn't put you in danger. Real friends don't set you up. And if something feels wrong, if your gut is telling you to walk away, listen to it. Because Trey ignored those warning signs. He trusted when he should have questioned, and it cost him everything. Trey's case stands out because of the sheer number of people involved. 10 teenagers. That's a classroom. That's a lunch table. That's an entire friend group that collectively decided this was acceptable. And that's terrifying. Because it means the problem isn't just one troubled teen or one bad relationship. It's a culture. A culture where violence is entertainment. Where loyalty means staying silent even when someone's about to die. Where phones come out before helping hands. As this case moves through the courts, 10 young people are facing the consequences of June 24th, 2025. Devin Raper, the alleged shooter, facing murder charges that could mean life in prison. Gianna Kisten Mocker, the girlfriend who allegedly orchestrated it all, facing accessory charges. 8 others facing various charges, from murder to conspiracy. Some are out on bond, trying to live some version of a normal life while wearing ankle monitors and waiting for trial. Others are still locked up, watching their teenage years disappear behind bars. Their defense attorneys will argue these were just kids, that emotions ran high, that mistakes were made, that they didn't fully understand the consequences of their actions. And maybe that's true. Maybe they really didn't understand that pulling a trigger ends a life forever, that setting someone up makes you just as guilty, that standing by and doing nothing makes you complicit. But prosecutors will argue something else. They'll argue this was planned, coordinated, deliberate. They'll point to those text messages, that video evidence, those witness statements. They'll show how Gianna manipulated both boys, how Devin made threats before that night, how the others helped facilitate a murder. And they'll ask the jury a simple question. If 10 people knew this was coming, why didn't anyone stop it? The courtroom will be packed when this case goes to trial. Trey's family on one side, looking for justice. The defendants' families on the other, trying to understand how their children became involved in murder. And somewhere in the middle, a community trying to heal from a tragedy that never should have happened. Trey Wright's story is a tragedy on every level. A young life cut short, a family destroyed by grief, 10 teenagers facing decades in prison, a community grappling with questions it doesn't want to answer. But if there's anything to take from this, anything that might prevent the next Trey Wright, it's this. Love shouldn't hurt. Love shouldn't control you. Love shouldn't put you in danger. And if someone who claims to love you is manipulating you, using you, playing you against others, that's not love. That's something else. Something dark. Something that can get you killed. Pay attention to your friends. If you see someone in a toxic relationship, speak up. If you hear about something dangerous about to happen, tell an adult. Don't worry about being a snitch. Don't worry about looking uncool. Worry about keeping people alive, because in the end, that's what matters. And for anyone out there playing those thug or gangster roles that Jasmine talked about, hear this. It's not worth it. The image isn't worth your life. The reputation isn't worth decades in prison. The street cred isn't worth the pain you'll cause to everyone who loves you. Trey's gone. Those 10 teenagers' lives are destroyed. All because people were playing roles instead of being real. Put the phones down. Be present. Help when you see someone in danger. Speak up when you see something wrong. Choose real friendship over fake loyalty. Choose life over violence. Choose truth over image. Because at the end of the day, Trey Wright was just a 16-year-old boy who wanted to be loved, who trusted the wrong person, who showed up when he should have stayed home, and now he's gone, forever. That's the real crime here, not just the murder, but all the chances to stop it that were ignored. All the warning signs that were missed, all the moments when someone could have chosen differently. Trey's story doesn't have a happy ending, but maybe, just maybe, it can save someone else. Maybe some teenager watching this will recognize the warning signs in their own relationship. Maybe some friend group will decide to speak up instead of staying silent. Maybe some kid will put their phone down and help instead of record. That would be Trey's real legacy. Not the way he died, but the lives that get saved because people learned from his death. Rest in peace, Trey Wright. 16 years old. Funny, loyal, full of life. Gone too soon. Taken by the person who was supposed to protect him. But remembered by everyone who knew him and everyone who hears his story. I said what I said. If this story hit you the way it hit me, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Shadowed Crimes TV if you haven't already. And drop a comment below. Tell me what you think about this case. Tell me if you've seen warning signs like this in your own life. Let's keep the conversation going, because these stories, they're not just entertainment. They're warnings, they're lessons, and they might just save a life. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.